I'm joined by John McCamant, who's the editor of MTSL, which is also bioinvest.com. John, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure to be here, Remy.
Okay, John, so U.S. markets have closed and it's been a bloodbath for overseas markets, but in terms of U.S. markets, the equity averages closed on a mixed note, but over in the biotech sector, we saw a sell-off. So what do you make of today's action?
Well, particularly from a biotech perspective, we really have this is our sixth straight down day to start the year. In particular, this is a risk-on sector, so we really need investors to have a bit of a more risk-on appetite. When you combine this fall or the 12-year low in oil, the international market problems, we really ran into a situation today in particular where it may be capitulation, but there were just not enough buyers. We had a lot of volume in some of the relative small to mid-cap names in a space, but when you're one of your true market cap leaders, Celgene, disappoints at least on the earnings outlook, and at one point was down over 8, maybe 9% on a very large cap company. That really puts a lot of fear into investors, and that was the primary driver of the markets today. And we know in the big picture, fear and greed are the primary drivers.
And John, you mentioned earnings. Of course, investors will be paying attention to that, but they'll also be paying attention to IPOs as well as mergers and acquisitions. We got the announcement of Shire's buyout of Bexalta finally today. But in terms of trends, what do you see on the horizon?
Well, we would like to see another large buyout. We haven't had that in the space for a while. The Bexalta Shire has already been talked about and kind of actually factored in. Something along the lines of the Onyx Amgen a couple years ago, but something that really comes in and shows that there's real value being created and also gets investors excited again and points out some of the underlying values. And as regards to the IPOs, that may be it for a while. I mean, they filed last week, but this is a very difficult tape, and it's one thing we know in biotech is that they're generally going to bank till basically to the very end, and they're going to bank to the puke. They're just going to throw these things out there, and I think may have hit a saturation point in the sector, at least for raising new money for now.
And last but not least, in your newsletter, MTSL, you and your partner always talk about companies that are in the pipeline in terms of FDA filings or approvals or any upcoming decisions. So what are you paying attention to?
We don't see any big FDA approvals near term. What we were looking at was probably going to be pipeline. Again, one of the hotter areas last year was immune oncology, where people were focused a lot on CAR T type technologies, which are more personalized therapy. I think this year we're going to see more of the combinations of the PD-1 or some of these Keytruda and Optivo and with the other follow-on cancer drugs. It's not always going to be these CAR Ts, but maybe it's 3 or 4 different cancer drugs we already have, a couple on the market and some in development. We're going to see more and more combinations. Incyte, INCY, announced 3 or 4 different types of collaborations within their pipeline doing this exact combinations of different immune oncology cancer drugs.
Okay, John, well, thank you so much for your time and insight today.
My pleasure, Remy.